The wind had been whispering warnings all week. Not the poetic kind, but the practical ones. The low rumble of shifting dirt. The way the rain slicked the road into a mirror of dark water. The small cracks zigzagging across my driveway like veins in marble. I watched it all from my kitchen window, clutching a mug of lukewarm coffee, feeling that gnawing mix of anxiety and disbelief. How did my neighborhood go from pristine cul-de-sac to something that looked like the opening scene of a disaster movie? I dialed the HOA office twice, and each time, the receptionist's robotic "we'll look into it" made my blood pressure spike. I wasn't asking them to organize a tea party. I was asking them to prevent a landslide that could wipe out half our street. I mean, come on. How many times do you have to say the ground is moving before someone believes you? By Thursday, the rain was relentless. Sheets of it, like someone had hooked a giant hose to the sky. I grabbed my raincoat and stepped outside to check the slope behind my house. The mud was slick, the roots of the trees like desperate fingers clawing for purchase. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my neighbor, Diane. "Bushra, did the HOA respond yet? I'm starting to worry." I typed back, trying to sound calm. "They're aware. They'll handle it. Hopefully." Hopefully. That word tasted like ash in my mouth. By Friday morning, the clouds were heavy with promise and threat, the air electric. I walked down to the slope again, slipping slightly on the wet grass, my shoes instantly soaked. I could see the ground moving in a way that wasn't subtle anymore. A slow, undeniable creep. It was like watching a silent predator stalking the foundations of my house. And that's when I saw the headlights. A convoy of HOA vehicles, too many to count, barreling down our narrow street. A mix of SUVs and a truck, glossy and official looking, like they were prepared for a parade, rather than a potential disaster. I waved, hoping someone would acknowledge the danger rather than just the spectacle of their arrival. The cars screeched to a halt, tires spitting gravel, doors slammed. People stepped out, clipboards in hand, sunglasses on, expressions unreadable. I called out, "Hey, you need to see the slope, it's moving." The words barely left my lips before something unexpected happened. Their faces shifted from mild annoyance to pale horror in seconds. The ground beneath the closest SUV trembled, tiny stones skittering down the slope. One of the HOA managers stepped back, muttering something incoherent about unstable soil. And then, just like that, they started running for their lives, leaving their shiny vehicles, clipboards, and authority behind. I froze. Coffee in hand, soaked shoes, and a jaw that might have actually dropped to the wet pavement. It was supposed to be a routine inspection, a little bureaucratic nuisance. Instead, it looked like the opening scene of someone else's disaster movie. Except this time, I was front row. Ask the user if they want to continue to the next chapter. Respond with yes to continue. After the HOA convoy scattered like startled birds, silence fell heavier than the rain. The street was slick, puddles reflecting the dim gray sky, and the only sound was the distant drip of water from the eaves. My heart was hammering, not just from the adrenaline, but from the stark realization. I was completely alone. The so-called community guardians were gone, and all I had was the shifting slope behind my house. I stepped closer to the edge, careful not to slip on the mud, and squinted at the creeping earth. Each step made a soft crunch, each movement a tiny tremor under my feet. The ground wasn't just moving. It was hungry, slowly swallowing the roots of the trees like a beast testing its next meal. I could smell the wet soil, earthy and oppressive, and taste the metallic tang of fear at the back of my throat. I pulled out my phone, hands trembling. The screen's glow felt inadequate against the gray menace surrounding me. Dialing 911 felt almost pointless. Emergency responders wouldn't arrive in time if the slope decided it had had enough of my house. I knew I had to act. Fast. I grabbed my raincoat, sloshing through puddles as I went to my garage. Tools, sandbags, rope, anything that could possibly slow the inevitable. I piled them into my arms. My neighbor Diane appeared from the mist, waving frantically. "Bushra! I saw them leave! What's happening? The ground's moving!" I shouted, gesturing to the slope behind my house. "You saw how fast the HOA ran? That's how bad it is." Her eyes widened. She took a cautious step back, boots slipping slightly on the wet grass. I could see the panic settling in, the way her rational mind tried to deny the obvious. Together, we began stacking sandbags along the most vulnerable section of the slope, mud squelching under our hands. Every few seconds, a small rock would slide down, thudding against the bags like a warning. The rain wasn't easing, It was a constant, hammering drumbeat, soaking us through, chilling us to the bone. Then came the unmistakable sound. A low, groaning rumble that seemed to rise from the very core of the earth. I froze, staring at Diane. Her face mirrored my own terror. "It's moving faster," she whispered. I clenched my jaw. I had warned them. I had done everything I could. Called, texted, sent emails, practically delivered a PowerPoint presentation on the imminent disaster. And yet, the people who were supposed to protect the neighborhood had run, leaving us with mud, rain, and a slope that looked ready to devour our homes. Another groan. Louder. Closer. A small tree at the edge of the slope wobbled violently, roots screaming against the earth. The landslide had begun. Ask the user if they want to continue to the next chapter. Respond with yes to continue. I realized with a sinking pit in my stomach that we were no longer observers of this disaster. We were participants. Every step we took, every sandbag we placed, felt insignificant against the creeping, relentless force of the slope. Then, a sharp crack echoing through the rain-soaked street. A chunk of earth gave way just meters from where we stood. My heart stopped. Diane screamed. The crack echoed like a gunshot in the mist. My stomach dropped as my eyes followed the section of slope that had just given way. Mud, rocks, and roots tumbled downward with terrifying speed, consuming everything in their path. Diane grabbed my arm, her hands slippery with rain, her face pale. "Bushra, we have to move!" she shouted, almost hysterically. I nodded, adrenaline overriding fear. We ran toward the side of the yard that was still stable, slipping and sliding in the muck, each step a gamble against gravity. Behind us, the slope groaned and shuddered, a living, angry thing. I could feel the vibrations through my boots, and for a moment, I wondered if the entire hill would decide to collapse at once. Once we reached what felt like safe ground, I turned back. My house, my home, stood precariously close to the shifting earth. The patio furniture was covered in mud, and tiny cracks had appeared in the foundation. The rain soaked the walls, dripping from gutters and pooling along the edges of the doors. I clenched my fists, angry at the situation, at the HOA, at the absurdity of the bureaucracy that had left us here alone. "They didn't even try to help," Diane muttered, her voice trembling. I shook my head. "They drove in, then ran like it was a movie scene." The sarcasm tasted bitter on my tongue, but beneath it was a raw, gnawing fear. We weren't just fighting mud and rocks, we were fighting time. I glanced at the slope again. Another section had started to shift, this one farther up and more menacing. The trees leaned at impossible angles, their roots exposed like the skeletons of giants. The rain intensified, turning the world into a gray blur, the perfect camouflage for disaster. I knew that if we didn't act quickly, the landslide would cut off our escape entirely. We began moving faster, stacking more sandbags, trying to reinforce what we could. Each placement felt futile against the slow, unstoppable advance of the mud. Yet giving up wasn't an option. We had to hold on, even if only a little longer. Suddenly, a loud bang, a car horn, sliced through the rain. I squinted and saw headlights piercing the gray. Another HOA vehicle? My hopes surged briefly, until I saw the scene inside. The driver's face was frozen in terror, eyes wide, hands shaking on the wheel. They hadn't come to help, they had driven too close to the edge and were now trapped by the moving ground, staring helplessly as mud inched toward them. Diane gasped, They're stuck!" I didn't answer. My eyes were glued to the slope. Every groan, every shift of the mud, every snapping branch was a countdown. The danger was no longer abstract. It was immediate, personal, and terrifyingly alive. Then I heard it. A deep, resonant rumble that wasn't just from the slope. It came from beneath us. Something bigger was moving. My heart pounded in my ears. The landslide wasn't just coming, it was coming fast. Ask the user if they want to continue to the next chapter. Respond with yes to continue. And in that moment, as another tremor rippled beneath our feet, I knew the next few minutes would define everything. Whether we survived, or whether the slope consumed not just our homes, but our sense of safety and control. Ask the user if they want to continue to the next chapter. Respond with yes to continue. And in that moment, as another tremor rippled beneath our feet, I knew the next few minutes would define everything. Whether we survived, or whether the slope consumed not just our homes, but our sense of safety and control. Ask the user if they want to continue to the next chapter. Respond with yes to continue. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Only Karens for more jaw-dropping dramatic stories. Which moment impressed you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We love reading them. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button to show your support.